Coming up, the 2019 General Assembly is winding down. We'll have an update at what is still on the agenda for state lawmakers. And the Senate followed the House's lead, voting to stop President Trump's national emergency declaration when it comes to border security. We'll tell you what comes next. Plus, some scary moments for drivers in Pike County was caught on camera. Now that video helped get the man behind the wheel off the road.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
If you're just now joining us, good morning to you. It is currently 5:30. Let's go ahead and check in with Brandon Robinson for a look at your forecast this morning. Brandon, not too bad out there this morning.
Especially in those eastern counties temperature-wise. The rain is starting to move out. It has moved out for a lot of folks this morning, so enjoy the day. It's going to be kind of a dreary day, maybe a mixture of sun and clouds as we head through the first part of your morning, though, hopefully. Anyway, let's take a look at the cameras as we head out the door. US 119, US 23 at Jenkins. Pretty quiet, just some wet roads this morning, UVA-wise, clouds back and forth. Rain on the way out as we see there, clouds hopefully too, and then winds still cranking, so you're going to see that as you head out the door. Temperatures, though, that's pretty nice, at least in those eastern counties, starting out there in the 60s and upper 50s for the first part of your day anyway. The rest of the forecast coming up here in just a few minutes. Macy?
All right, thank you, Brandon. This week certainly makes me think spring's on its way. A judge declares a mistrial in a Harlan County murder case. Shelby Shell is accused of murdering Ronnie King and burning his house in 2013. After closing statements, the jury began deliberating shortly after 6:30 this evening. Yesterday evening. They could not reach a verdict. They were sent back in to deliberate again and review more evidence. At around 10:50 last night, the judge declared a hung jury. We'll continue to update this story as we learn more, including the new trial date when it is announced on WYMT.com. Thursday was a long day in Frankfort. A lot of bills are passing in the final hours of the legislative session. Mike Fussell is tracking those, some of which went late into the night.
An emotional moment came leading up to the unanimous House passage of a bill that allows for those convicted of a DUI to opt out for an ignition interlock device, possibly shortened license suspension. Tearful lawmakers noted some of their family members were victims of drunk drivers. Division came with House Bill 114, which ultimately passed, including an amendment with language similar to SB 34, stripping power from the Secretary of State's office. While some called it a political game, others said it was needed. A needed check on the office following allegations of abuse reported by ProPublica. There was a bit of a preview to the politics of the upcoming governor's race as well. The House passed SB 9, the fetal heartbeat abortion bill, 71-19. Democratic candidate House Minority Leader Rocky Adkins voted for the bill, and Representative Robert Goforth, the Republican challenger to pro-life Governor Matt Bevin, claimed on the floor that a similar bill he filed was not voted on because of his intent to run against Bevin.
Because I'm running against him and I spoke up for my constituents, my bill's not getting heard. May God bless you, and may he bless the cause in which I fight and you fight.
This is yet another attempt to criminalize women and their families and their doctors.
The ACLU noted that it would sue the state because it believes the bill is unconstitutional, adding they believe it would ban abortion as early as 6 weeks of pregnancy. After Thursday, there's only one legislative day left in the session. That will be on March 28th.
Kentucky lawmakers agreed to borrow $75 million to fix up the park system and bolster its efforts to attract businesses to the state. House Bill 268 would cost taxpayers more than $3 million in payments a year, money that would come from the state's $130 million reserve. The House and Senate were scheduled to vote on the proposal last night. No word on the outcome of that vote. Democrat Rocky Adkins released a plan yesterday that he plans to take across the state ahead of the May gubernatorial primary. The current minority floor leader wants to provide free community college and job training for adults across the Bluegrass. His plan calls for 2 years of tuition-free community or technical school for all high school graduates and adults who have not earned a credential. He did not immediately put a price tag on the initiative. Atkins says he would look at state lottery reserve funds to help pay for it. In nearby West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice approved a nearly $5 billion state budget for the Mountain State. Justice signed the fiscal year 2020 budget yesterday. State lawmakers passed the budget earlier this morning, setting aside funding for a 5% teacher raise that will be addressed in a special session this summer. Senate Republicans joined Democrats Thursday to block President Trump's national emergency border declaration. The vote was 59-41, with 12 Republicans voting against the executive action. Conservatives criticized President Trump for executive overreach in issuing the emergency and worried it could make way for Democratic presidents to declare emergencies for any policy they want. President Trump has already said he plans to veto that vote.
I'll probably have to veto, and it's not going to be overturned, and we're going to have our whole thing. It's been, the legal scholars all say it's totally constitutional. It's very important. It's really a border security vote. It's pure and simple. It's a vote for border security. It's a vote for no crime.
Senator Mitch McConnell gave a personal send-off on the Senate floor yesterday to one of his longtime aides. He bid farewell to Don Stewart, his spokesman and deputy chief of staff. During his speech, the typically reserved McConnell got choked up several times.
There's Cher, there was Prince, there's Madonna, and there is Stu. Everybody knows Stu. So today I have to say goodbye to an all-star staff leader who took his job about as seriously as anybody you will ever meet.
Don Stewart is leaving Capitol Hill to work for a trade group. Yesterday, Connecticut's highest court ruled in favor of Sandy Hook victims' families. A lawsuit which claims the manufacturer of the assault rifle used to kill 26 people in 2012 knowingly marketed the weapon to consumers to, quote, carry out offensive military-style combat missions against their perceived enemies. In 2016, a judge dismissed the case due to a statute that protects gun manufacturers in the event their weapons are used in criminal activity. A funeral for 6 of the 8 victims of a shooting at a school in Suzano, Brazil was held yesterday. The school shooting happened on Wednesday when 2 former students opened fire on the students and people in the school. After the attack, the shooters then shot themselves and killed themselves. A memorial service was held yesterday at a Catholic church in Addis Ababa for those who died in the Ethiopian airplane crash. The flight crashed shortly after takeoff Sunday, killing all 157 people on board. The plane involved was a Boeing 737 MAX 8 jet, the same type of jet involved in another recent deadly crash. The U.S., Canada, EU, and other countries have grounded the plane model as investigations continue. And back to local news, a Pike County couple recently spotted a man driving erratically. They followed him and then called 911. They also captured the whole thing on video. You can take a look at that here. Kevin Hopkins, the man behind the wheel, was pulled over and charged with a DUI. The video shows he went off the road twice and nearly hit several cars, including a school bus.
There was a few places where cars couldn't get off the road, and he managed to get over just in time. But we stayed back enough that, you know, we were waiting on it. It was going to be an accident, with school traffic on the road especially.
Hopkins is in the Pike County Detention Center. Police say whenever you see someone you believe may be impaired and behind the wheel, to call them immediately. Kentucky now knows their opponent in the first SEC tournament game. The Wildcats will take on Alabama for a much-anticipated matchup later today. Will Puckett and Willie Hope have more from day one in Music City.
Well, the SEC tournament day number 2 and number 1 for the WYMT crew is almost in the books. And Willie, Big Blue Nation's out in full force today.
I mean, we drove in and just you could see the sea of blue kind of here. And Kentucky wasn't even close to playing. Obviously, they play tomorrow, but you know, they weren't even close to the game in which most Kentucky fans care about. It was crazy.
You can tell Kentucky fans love basketball and love their Kentucky basketball. I met up with a couple of fans, and here's what they had to say waiting the big game.
Big Blue Nation shows up.
Big Blue Nation was out in full force on Broadway and 5th Avenue in Nashville today, and they are confident in their Cats heading into the matchup.
Oh, it's great. We were just talking about that, my brothers and I, that St. Louis last year was okay, but we love Nashville, especially Kentucky being so close.
And while Coach Cal talks about he doesn't think the SEC championship matters, some Kentucky fans agree with him.
After so many SEC tournaments, I'd rather have number 9 than I would
50 or 60 of these.
Because in the end, they're not looking for SEC championships. They're looking for something a little bit better.
A big game, and it's now March Madness for Big Blue Nation. They'll be out in full force on Friday. Willie, hopefully they'll get a pretty big piece back for the game, too.
Yep, they've been missing Reed Travis since before the Tennessee game, a couple weeks now. But, you know, P.J. Washington, all those guys are excited to get Reed back. Here's what they had to say about getting their big man back in the middle.
Regardless of the opponent, the Wildcats will be glad to have Reed Travis back on the court.
Having him back, I mean, it's great. I mean, not a lot of teams can really double us because we definitely have another post player that can really score the ball. So it's going to be harder for teams to guard us. And then he's great on the defensive end. He knows what he always knows what we're in. He's vocal and he's a leader.
The Wildcats will hope to have Reed Travis back on the court. The grad transfer big man is a game-time decision.
I think he's going to fit right back in. You know, he was injured, but he's still, you know, getting workouts and stuff like that. So I think he'll fit right in, you know, as he was earlier in the season, and we're excited to eventually have him back.
Well, we just can't stress enough how important Reed Travis is to Kentucky if they want to make a run to the SEC championship and possibly national championship.
Well, we'll find out for sure. 7 o'clock on the SEC Network is when Kentucky tips off. That's coverage for day one here in Nashville. We'll have much more on Friday outside Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. Will Puckett, Willie Hope, back to y'all.
Kentucky takes on Alabama at 7 on the SEC Network. Will and Willie will have more from Nashville later on today. It's time once again for Hoops Hysteria on WYMT.com and your chance to play our NCAA tournament bracket game. You can also compete against some of the WYMT staff and win a 65-inch smart TV. A $1 million prize will be awarded nationally if someone correctly picks all the games. Good luck to you. You can register now and fill out your bracket as soon as the pairings are announced Sunday night. You have until 15 minutes before the first game on March 21st to sign up. And still to come, we'll see what movie the crew is reviewing this week in our Plugged In movie review.
Cooler air is moving in, but conditions will improve this weekend. I'll have the full forecast in just a few minutes.